Our modern world has thousands of problems. Now, one doctor offers 4 formulas that rethinks how we do therapy, how we do medication, and how we see the world. Join us if you want to learn the science of human emotions. You're listening to the 4 Blocks Podcast. Welcome to the 4 Blocks Podcast. I'm Statler here with Neil and the legend himself, Dr. Vincent Parr, PhD. Today's topic is the NBA. They have a new mental health initiative coming out this year. Starting this next season, every single NBA team is required to have 1 or 2 mental health professionals that are licensed to be on staff and available. So according to an article from The Nation, this has been a problem in the NBA. According to Adam Silver, the NBA's commissioner, he says, "We are living in a time of anxiety. I think it's a direct result of social media. A lot of players are unhappy." He then went on to speak about the depth of the sadness, isolation, and even depression many players feel. He also said that the players sometimes reach out to him on the road to discuss their feelings. So a lot of people would say, these guys make $70 million a year, stay at the nicest hotels, they got all the validation and success in the world. So my question is, why do you think that they are still not happy?
Because they don't know the outside events don't cause their feelings and thoughts.
Yes, correct. Anytime that you make the outside, and it doesn't, again, like the Zen statement, it rains on everyone equally. So how whether you're rich or poor or a king or a pauper, the 70 million, 100 million, 100,000, or 10,000, the emotions are created the same in everyone. We just think that it's the outside that's creating our happiness. And again, that's a materialistic outlook that if I make more, then I'll be happier. And we know that's not the case. We see that all the time.
So Adam Silver put a lot of the blame on social media. Granted, a lot of these players have a lot of pressure and there's a lot of people judging them. But my question is, do you think social media carries a lot of the blame for their anxiety and depression? And also, have you seen social media ever negatively affect any of your patients?
Well, again, social media or the players are not to blame. These are all parts of the environment in our world as it is. And it's the player's interpretation or perception of what's on social media that's causing the difficulty. And that's where we come in. Social media is not going to change. And good luck in getting Facebook to go along with your preferences, whether it's the NBA or who it is. Social media is a fact of the times. But our perception, we can't control. Go back to the Stoics. We can't control the outside world, but we can master our own reaction to social media. There's the crux of the problem. Have I seen people react negatively to social media? Almost everyone that comes in to see me now. Their social media. I mean, if they're befriended or somebody says something on social media, they get enraged or they get, depressed or disturbed, and it makes a difference. They evaluate their self-worth as a result of how many friends they have on social media. But it's not social media. See, again, we're doing the same thing. It's the money that's causing it. No, it's not. It's my mother that looked at me cross-eyed. No, it's not. It's that inner dialogue that never stops with the person themselves. Now, again, I don't like to talk in terms of blame. I like to talk in terms of responsibility. And until we take responsibility for all of our actions and all of our thoughts and all of our sensations and all of our feelings, and as long as we continue to point the finger to the outside world, whether it's social media, our mama, our mate, our children, our relatives, our neighbors, or our neighbor's dog, whatever it may happen to be, we need to look at the mind itself. All things are a reflection of the mind. And if you're disturbed about the social media, that's a reflection of your mind. A lot of people aren't disturbed about social media. Now, how does that happen? How can it cause it on one hand and not cause it on the other?
The issue with social media, to me, reminds me of the first of the four needs and fears. It's that need for love and approval from all these people. You're basically letting your social circle define your worth, and if you're worthy of being, in the tribe, it's almost like archaic from,
Yeah.
you know.
It's the same thing. It's just run in another something to point the blaming finger at. And blame will not resolve a problem. Understanding and taking responsibility, that's how you resolve an issue.
Well, once they understand how they create these four blocks, anger, anxiety, guilt, and depression, you can start to fix your problems. You're not going to be blaming these outside events, or I didn't get a tweet, or they didn't notice, they didn't get any recognition for that number 3 shot that I got today. And let the ego go. Mm-hmm. So once you understand that the depression comes from a need, I need this in order to be happy. No, you don't.
I need to be approved. I need to be loved. I need to be the best.
By everyone.
By everyone, yeah.
Yes, right.
Good luck.
Yeah, good luck. That will never happen. It hadn't happened so far on this planet. So no, the social media is a sign of the times. And it's going to be something else. It's going to be virtual reality next or whatever, right?
I know Instagram is rolling out taking away the option to like something. They've taken that away in 6 countries. So on Instagram, you can't like something, which is like the whole point of Instagram. People are they're trying to rework how it is affecting people with that.
Well, the real shame of this whole thing is that, the NBA is getting all this publicity because of all these big shots that make all this money are suffering. Well, it's not them that are suffering. It's all the franchises that are suffering, not just the franchises. It's us who are sitting at home here are going through the same things. We all go through these feelings the same way.
Yeah, exactly. I'm lousy at making foul shots, much less 3-pointers. But I suffer with anger the same way as a professional, Steph Curry.
Somebody making 60, 70 million. We all get depressed and angry the same way.
The same way. The money is beside the point. The money is convenient. You can buy stuff. And if you're attached to the stuff, then you're disturbed. So,
why don't we give the school system some more attention besides these football players and basketball players?
Yeah, give them all attention. If you're going to have a program on mental health, the first thing you got to do is stop blaming the outside world. That's the first insight.
The only thing I would say about money is money definitely doesn't buy you happiness. You can be rich and miserable. The only thing I would say on the flip side is that a lack of money does cause stress. Like, unless you're okay with, wandering the countryside, if you're trying to live in society with rent and bills and you need to eat, a lack of money does cause stress. So in that sense, getting money helps you with your hierarchy of needs, but you're never going to find fulfillment or your happiness from some false sense of security. And the more important thing is, money doesn't cause emotions. Your thoughts cause emotions. Mm-hmm. So that's a big thing. I had another question here. That article from The Nation did go on to say that, they think it might be the isolation from their families and the constant traveling. There's also the inability to...
That's still the outside.
Exactly.
I mean, you can go on and name everything. How about their girlfriend? They've had an argument with their girlfriends, right? I mean, we see a lot of the violence, the hitting and all the other kind of stuff, and well, that's caused it. Or then they want to go back, and if it ever goes to court, the lawyer's going to come in and say they weren't loved enough, or their parents never said they loved them. So we're always blaming outside. I don't want you to blame inside either, but again, as I've said on here many times, Gandhi's challenge to the human race, and we don't listen to the real wise. Gandhi's challenge to the human race: turn the spotlight inward, not inward for blame, but inward into understanding how emotions and sensations and feelings arise. Because they rise in the human mind, not in how much money you make or how little you make. You're uncomfortable if you're poor, but you don't. There are people that choose a poor lifestyle.
Oh yeah, and they're super happy.
And they're
Totally.
and they're happy. Some of the happiest
Absolutely.
people on the planet are those that have chosen to give up any type of job or income, and they make a living on the land, and what have you, and they've done it for thousands and thousands of years. I'm not saying you should do that. Having a certain standard of living does have, especially in this society, advantages, but it doesn't cause stress. Neither does social media, neither does your mama, and neither does your girlfriend or boyfriend.
So let's get real specific, which I think you already are. But if you were the mental health coach of one of these teams, what type of exercises would you have the athletes do?
I'd teach exactly what the program shows. I would come in and I would teach them responsibility for all thoughts, feelings, and behavior. Then I would break up how we create in the mind these 4 major blocks to personal happiness, because we all create them the same way. And we're not different. A human being is made up of 5 aggregates. I've said this before here. It's made up of, and it's different parts. I mentioned on here before about the Buddha pointing to a chariot and saying, "What's the essence of the chariot? Is it the wheels? Is it the axle? Is it the seat? Is it the form? The form of
Utility?
the chariot? Yeah. So what's the essence of the chariot? There is no essence. It's made up of different parts. What's the essence of a human being? You've got 5 parts. You've got one physical and 4 mental. And what we're talking about is helping to understand the mental part, the 5 parts of a human being that is necessary. You could say the 5 parts to be a chariot that's necessary. 1 is form, and then the 4 mental is feelings, sensations, thoughts, mental formations, and consciousness. So those 5 parts are always at every moment. At every moment, they're rising and passing away at every moment. So things neither exist nor they do not exist. They don't exist because they disappear, and they don't not exist because they do appear. All right? So you understand that at every moment, they're just these independent parts that have come together to make a human being. Okay, now how do we disturb ourselves? We take mental formations or thinking, and we believe what we think, and that becomes a habit, and then we disturb ourselves with the 4 blocks, and that's what we got the equations for, to show you. So I would teach them, number 1, that we're responsible for our feelings. Here's how our feelings are created, by mental concepts in the mind.
Our formulas.
And formulas. And then here's what you do to let those go or dispute them. Because if you never let go or dispute your irrational thought processes, you're never going to be happy if you make, no matter how much money you make or what situation you happen to be in your life.
Here's something from the Ringer. It can be easy for jaded fans to write off NBA players' mental illness as ridiculous or privileged, given their fame and apparent wealth. In the shoot-around before the Malice at the Palace, Pistons fans taunted Media World Peace, then Ron Arrest for
Meta World Peace.
Meta World Peace.
Ron Artest.
Well, we all have this mental illness the same way. It's not that their wealth or their fame is bringing this on. We all have these same issues.
Yes.
The only reason why they're getting more attention of it because they're in the starlight. That's it.
Yeah.
But we all have these things. It's like saying that Ron Arrest is crazy because of the way he gets angry on the court. Well, it's not that he's crazy. He's just shooting on himself and thinking that all these calls and things that are happening to him, he's getting singled out on. The calls that he's getting should be getting called. He's not accepting it. He's thinking that he's better than his ego has taken over.
And our ego as fans, we often are jealous because we worship the financial and the money, and we're jealous because these guys are making more and they're living, quote, the grand life. But they're not. They're having a lot of fun.
Yeah, they think they're superhuman.
Some of them are feeling tremendous pressure and they're miserable.
But they suffer the same way as the fan at home on TV or the fan in the arena. If anger, in other words, a statement in Buddhism is that we all sit under the same shelter. It's all the same. It's not different. You do different things. Your behavior is different. But the creation of emotional disturbance, or the reverse of that, human contentment and peace, comes from the mind. Thank goodness, because you don't have to have these multi-million-dollar contracts and be a professional star in order to be happy. That's not the road to contentment and happiness.
I think one of the positive benefits that a team might want this too is they understand how important mindset is for winning. You know, like it's the players that are having the most fun, that are feeling light, and they're not feeling pressure, that are actually having the success too. I feel like it's important to point out because we're all going to have one mindset or another, and the mindset that you have completely determines the experience that you're going to have.
Exactly. And if you concentrate on your behavior, shooting the foul shot, catching the pass, if it's in football or what, and that's why they practice, right? Over and over and over again. If you stop the dialogue in your head from literally blocking you from doing this natural training. You've got muscle training and everything else that's going to happen. So the thought process, if I don't catch this pass, the coach is going to take me out or what have you, or, I'm responsible for the team and, the thought process itself helps you not concentrate on that ability that you've trained over and over and over again. Making the shot, catching the pass, doing whatever. So the thought process does get in the way. So that's what you teach to the professional teams. That dialogue in your head, along with the practice, can interfere with the outcome of your performance at any time on the court.
I was going to say, it's almost sort of sad that the NBA can recognize how important it is, yet our school system still thinks algebra is more important than, the way our minds work. Like,
I think it's easier for the NBA to make decisions. When you're getting into the school
less
systems,
bureaucracy.
Less bureaucracy, yeah.
It's more centralized, or you don't have like this.
But see, if you get the NBA to start with something with our program where you can see the results from it, maybe the school system then can start picking up. The NBA can help push that to get into school systems.
So because we all do suffer the same way, if you could change one damaging belief that is wildly held by people in our society, what would that be?
Well, let me fudge a little bit and say two. Okay?
Nice.
Okay, one is what I call, and I've mentioned before here, is the greatest tragedy in the human condition is first to get insight, number one, that the outside world causes how I feel, causes my disturbance or happiness. Either way, it causes that. If you realize the outside world can't be any different. So that's number one. And then second, as my mentor and very good friend, Dr. Albert Ellis, always said, sure, shay, la, should. Find the must and find the should. is no emotional disturbance at all, emotional disturbance. And that's probably not 100% correct, because there could be faulty wiring in the brain and so forth. That might be the case, but that's 1% at most. So all disturbance, whether it's anger, depression, anxiety, does have a demand, a must, and a should. It's a demanding philosophy that this situation must occur or it must not occur. And guess why? Because I don't like it. It must not occur if I don't like it, or it must occur and spring into existence if I do. So those two things, we create and maintain our own emotional upset and happiness and joy. And second, look for the must, the should, and demand. There's 17 of those that we could go over.
Look at this right here in this article here. It says that anxiety, depression may be bipolar, whatever the case may be. Those are things that people don't always know what they are going through. That just goes back right to what you're saying, Doc, is that they don't know how they're creating these emotions.
Right.
And once you understand how you create these emotions, now you've got control over your thinking and your emotions. Now you got control over your depression, your anxiety, the panic attacks. If you don't know how you're creating them, how can you ever get control over them? It's impossible.
That's true.
I want to repeat the two beliefs that you said, just to summarize. One of them is that, the outside world determines your emotions. That's the first belief you would have them undo.
Yeah.
And then the second is the egocentric thinking that things should be working out for you, that you should be getting what you want. And that's what causes
And you should not be getting what you don't want.
Yeah, because
Right.
that's what causes you to have resistance when things don't go the way you
Right.
had. Expectations are the foundation of heartbreak.
So you could teach that to NBA players. You can teach it in the first grade in elementary school.
Do you think that a practice like meditation would make a measurable difference on
Huge.
NBA players' performance?
Huge. I'd have the NBA players meditating. I'd show them exactly, the process of meditating and the accumulation of a meditation practice over time is invaluable.
Well, in what way would it help them?
Well, but what you're doing is watching the moments arise moment by moment. When you're meditating, you first begin by, usually, not always, but most of the time, by concentrating on the breath. You see the breath changes from moment to moment. So there are two aspects of the meditation. You watch everything as it arises. When you're watching the breath, then you get an itch in the eye or on the shoulder, and you just watch that arise. And if you don't do anything, it passes away. What you're seeing when you're meditating is a law of the universe, impermanence. Everything, every single thing rises and passes away. It doesn't last. It comes and it goes. And then what you really want to let go of is the arising thought. Because when we're meditating, we see all those sensations and feelings. Like if we're meditating and we think about our mother, you could have a pleasant thought. Or if you've recently had an argument or you never got along with your mother, you can see yourself getting aggravated. You let go of that thought, and that goes away, and it goes away quicker. So what you're doing is observing your life moment by moment. And the key, too, is reaching into silence. Silence, where do the thoughts come from? Out of this silence. And how are they arising? They're arising from the interior and the silence out of our mind. Then
Language.
And then we cling to that language and we disturb ourselves. And that's what the equations are about. Here are the equations that you disturb and upset yourself with. So the meditation, along with the understanding of the cognitive processes, you can't miss. Yeah.
I think it's the meditation is a practical exercise that helps you get out of your head and back into the moment. I think one of the biggest
Yes.
things that would interrupt your flow state as an athlete is thinking too much when you're supposed to just be doing it. You know,
Yeah, that's
I
what
think
I'd say.
that's what meditation really helps.
Too
them
many
with.
stories going on in the mind.
Yeah.
Well, Doc, I remember one of the first things you taught me was that a thought is just a thought unless you give it the power.
Yeah,
You know,
thought-
we've got these 60,000 sentences go through our mind. And another thing how I like to explain the meditation is that when you got these thoughts that keep arising is that you get used to letting them go right away.
Right.
If the thoughts
You
keep
learn.
coming to you,
Yep.
you're not clinging to them, you're not attaching to them, you're letting them go. So this is when you start feeling the anxiety come on or the depression come on, you go, hey, wait a minute, what am I thinking? I'm thinking this is going to make me depressed if I keep thinking this way. Let me let go of it. So if you keep used to that pattern of thinking, of letting it go
Yeah.
instead of thinking about the thought.
Connect to
You're not
the
gonna be
Yeah,
that way.
let me just the Kennedy girl, just killed herself, overdosed last week. What she said in her own words, that with her depression, that she was drowning in her own thoughts. Yes, she was.
Perfect.
And too bad she didn't get to a rational therapist of some kind where she could be trained to let go of those thoughts as they arise and not cling to them. And she would not be drowning. We don't know we're not trained how to dispute our irrational thoughts and to let them go, what you were just mentioning. You can't drown in your thoughts if you don't hold on to them.
Is it even possible to get better from anger, anxiety, depression, guilt without meditation?
Yes, I
you can?
didn't meditate for ages. Meditation was Johnny come lately, but it's easier. I mean, you can climb the mountain without meditation, but you know, if you have all the gear, it's easy. It's
if you
easier.
meditate, you take a helicopter to the top.
Well, you at least have the gear, right? So it's much easier, and I think there are other benefits as well. That sense of peace and contentment is just increased.
I have
over
noticed
time.
when I do successfully meditate, when I finally get my thinker to shut up,
Mm-hmm.
I do experience like an immense amount of just I don't know how to describe it other than, like, I think you've said it before, that loving kindness just like radiates out of nowhere and you're like, whoa, you feel so blissed out. It's really cool. I also want to point out that meditation in the NBA is not even anything new. Phil Jackson had like all of his championship teams would meditate as a part of practice pretty regularly.
Good for Phil.
the Black
and
Mamba,
of course, he's on the West Coast.
It's like if you think if
they're ahead in the meditation area
Oh,
than
yeah.
the rest of us, right?
But if Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant meditate to win championships,
Mm-hmm.
I want to do what they do.
Here's another one, Doc, that goes back to what you were saying. The innate culture of being a professional athlete lends itself into keeping the body in optimum shape to achieve peak performance. However, too often, the psychology aspect gets neglected in sports. It's not just in sports. It's in our human condition all over the planet here. We're not working
Yeah.
on the mental ability of changing the way we think.
Yeah, one of my good friends and associates in Atlanta, Ed Garcia, rational therapist, great rational therapist, he called it building emotional muscle. But it's training your mind. We train the body, we go to the gym, we work out 3 and 4 and 6 days a week, but we don't do anything to train the mind. We just stick to the mind habits that have been with us for, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. So
Yeah, if they took the
Emotional.
time, do a couple of hours of practice and do an hour of mindfulness and watch our videos, watch how everything starts to change.
What are some of the pros and cons of medication versus meditation?
Well, practically 95% con for the. Now I'm very biased on this. Let me just say that, but medication, no. Under most circumstances, there are some circumstances, but very few. We're the most medicated society in our country. Where I wish we were the most meditative society, but that's going to take a while. Meditation has no side effects except positive that I know of. I think there might be one or two studies that might go against that, but the vast amount that being quiet, returning to silence, and so on, no psychological side effect. You don't get addicted. You do it, but you're not addicted to it. You don't get the shakes when you don't meditate. Okay, medication. Here are the main keys to me with medication. Number one, you have to get the right dose. Number one, you have to get the right medication and the right dose. Number three, there are no significant side effects, because usually there are side effects with anything you take into the body. Since we operate as a whole organism, there are going to be effects. So they're going to be side effects, and then you get medication for the side effects. And pretty soon we can hear you come in with all the meds in your pocket, right, or purse. So they're the side effects. And then the fourth, you become psychologically addicted, not just the physical side effects, but often you become psychologically addicted. I can't give this talk or presentation without anti-anxiety medication or so on. So you get psychologically addicted, or I can't have these sexual performance or whatever without the medication. So those four significant side effects is what you get with medication. And again, we don't want to look at, here's the fifth one. I'm just leave out the most important here. Medication never solves how you think. Medication can't change how you think. It can help you at most feel better temporarily if those other four things are there I just mentioned, but it can't change and can't teach you a new habit, way of thinking. It don't show you, it doesn't attack the shoulds and the must and the self-rating and the awfulizing. We have to do that by changing our beliefs. So medication, no. Meditation, absolutely. No side effects, and the more you meditate over time is an accumulated value and a sense of peace.
Now, do these athletes, Doc, these super athletes with the killer instinct, grit and grind and determination, do they get anger, anxiety, guilt, or depression different than, let's say,
No.
the people in the stands?
Nope. Same. Or whether it's Pee Wee football or NFL, same thing. We get angry in the traffic is the same process as the athlete on the field. And the beauty of learning this as a society, once you see that anger is anger, it's not you that's angry, it's this thought process that arises in all minds, then we're not kind of out there alone in the world and so on. And we understand anger when we see it in other people. Where's their demand and must? Egocentric thinking. They'll get over it. It'll come and go. But so we begin to understand, not just in ourselves, but the kids in school, the professional athletes, the horticulture major, the research scientist, the president, the Congress, mom and dad, it's the same. There's a beauty in this that, and the same, that you can go inside, you can dispute and let it go.
How about putting yourself down for missing a 3-shot and missing the game, or?
Same thing. Yeah. If you put yourself down, you've had it. Because
is that the same thing as missing a grade? Let's say somebody's in school and they miss a grade. And they put themselves down? Is that the same thing?
It's the same thing. You rate yourself because you missed the shot, you missed the 3-pointer that could have won the game, or you got a D in the algebra test you were saying, or the English test. There's something wrong with me. I'm no good. I'm less than I should have been.
So it doesn't matter what the event is. If you're going to be putting yourself down, you're telling yourself the same thing no matter what if you're putting yourself down.
And if you're angry and if you're projecting the mind in the future, you've got anxiety. I've just had a young college student that's straight A, but she's worried like hell. I had another fellow was in the other day telling me about his friend that he just hit $50 million in a stock trade, and he went out there to enjoy, and the guy just paid cash for a home, $6.5 million. The home is up in the hills overlooking, I won't mention the name of the area, too much information, but had beautiful view of mountains and rivers, and obviously not Florida if it's mountains, right? But and he was talking to him, and he'd been in to see me for a while, and he says, Doc, it's the same thing. I said, what? He said he was worried, and he asked him, he says, what are you worried about? And he's worried about the future. He just got 50 million. Now, excuse me, if you have 50 million, like the athletes, right? Well, they shouldn't have any problem, but they do. They worry about the future. And his friend, also in the same area, he got 60 million, and he was striving, pushing to be a billionaire. Now
that's we're going to call you disturbance.
I said, he wasn't satisfied in the M club, million. He had to get to the B club. And now my friend said, who's in the big stocks and bond business, does very well himself. He said that, yeah, and if you're a billionaire, they won't even know your name. I said, really? He says, yeah, because there are 2,500 billionaires. And how many of them do you know? They're not going to get the.
Like it's really going to make a difference in who you are.
At that point, also at that point, the money doesn't make a difference. It's the law of diminishing returns. Like a million seconds ago was July 20 something. A billion seconds ago was 1988.
Right. Yeah.
Think about what that means in terms of money.
Yeah. And
it's crazy.
And in 1988 or last July, we were doing the same thing to create the same emotions.
Yeah.
Either way, you can go back. You can go back as far.
Here's something that's really sad is that the only thing we've done so far is we're just getting a little bit more aware of what's taking place out here because now the basketball players, the baseball players, the stars, and everything
proving that they're not happy.
Yeah, they're coming out and talking about it now.
Yeah. Now let me say one thing. I'm not real impressed with, in my particular, profession in terms of growth. Now I'm very impressed if they select within the cognitive behavioral movement, rationally motive behavioral, cognitive behavioral therapy. That's the most research, the best research done in terms of change. If you go out and get, let's say, psychoanalysis, they're going to still blame mama. So you better be careful of who you choose because you get the same nonsense. Because a lot of the, quote, people in the area of mental health, I call it mental disturbance field, really, because a lot of them cling to the same old stuff about, and I've seen psychologists, psychiatrists, social workers, and so on. Now, many of them do fabulous jobs because I'm going to have people, coming all over, hit me over the head with this, but if you're not doing something in the cognitive behavioral umbrella, then, as Ellis always said, I'll use him, blame it on poor Al, if they did it anyway, that it was my mother, and they do that so much. They go back to the past, and it's outside. And if you have someone on your staff that's saying it's the outside world that causes it or is to blame or social media, you got the wrong person working with your team or your students or your mate and so on. You better get good cognitive behavioral rational theory, and then throw in the mindfulness and Zen and Vipassana and so on. Now you're doing some good things.
This reminds me of the quote from the very beginning of the course that you take on our website. The question is, why do you think most people are suffering? And your first answer was, because it's never enough. We want more than this. We want the next thing. You know, this woman I have is not enough. I want another one. $1 million is not enough.
Yeah, I want to get to the billionaire club.
I looked up the official numbers just so I could be accurate. 1 million seconds is 11 and a half days. 1 billion seconds is 31 years.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah.
It's like if you have $100 million, you can do whatever you want. If you have $200 million, your lifestyle did not change.
You can do whatever you want, but you can't be content with the same mindset that caused the problem in the first place. You can't approach a problem, no matter if it's in the NBA or schools, with the same cognitive habits, thinking habits, that created the problems in the first place. You got to change the cognitive.
You know, going back and talking about the past and blaming your mother or your father or the dog barking next door,
or Facebook or Twitter,
only makes it harder to get over what you're trying to get over, because you keep bringing up these things.
And it's saying you're a victim too. It's just
you're a victim.
You're a victim, right? And it's Trump's tweets caused me to go out and shoot up the shopping center. No, it didn't. I'm all for him stopping tweeting the nonsense, because he's as I think disturbed as anyone else when he blames and points the finger at the Democrats or with video games or this or attacks the thing. So he's pretty nutty in that process. But Trump's violent. Who in the hell can't get violent talk? You turn on talk radio, you get it all day long. So we got to take responsibility for our own stuff, period.
Got to learn how you create these emotions.
Whether you're president of the United States or your golf club.
Well, I think we pretty much covered it, y'all.
Yeah, I think so too.
Right.
We're close to an hour if we're not there yet.
Please send letters or call in or
send your
text
questions.
us.
Send your questions on Facebook, Instagram too.
Yeah,
check out our website on the4blocks.com.
Main thing, you're not to blame. We're not looking to place blame. We're looking for understanding. Thank you.
Take a breath and let go.